The impossible signal. A message from the void. Before we begin, drop a quick comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It really helps the channel grow and brings more sci-fi fans into our community. Now, let's dive in. The Galactic Monitoring Station hung in the darkness between star systems, a silent sentinel watching the empty void. For 300 cycles, nothing had disturbed its sensors. The region was known as the Dead Zone, a place where ships disappeared and signals died. No intelligent species dared enter. No one except humans. Station Commander Thelvon stood before the main display, his 4 eyes blinking in disbelief. His scaled skin rippled with colors that showed confusion and fear. Behind him, the crew of mixed alien species murmured nervously. They all saw the same impossible thing. A signal was coming from deep inside the Dead Zone. The Forbidden Territory. "This cannot be real," whispered Dr. Cairn, an insect-like scientist whose antennae twitched rapidly. "Nothing survives in there. The gravitational anomalies alone would crush any vessel." Thelvon's claws tapped against the console. "Yet someone is broadcasting. And look at the signal strength. Whatever is sending this is powerful." He turned to his communications officer, a floating jellyfish-like being named Wurish. "Can you decode it?" Wurish's translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "Already working on it, Commander. But this is strange. The signal uses an old human format. Very old. From before they joined the Galactic Council." A chill ran through the station. Humans had been part of the galactic community for only 50 years. They were still considered newcomers, young and reckless. But everyone knew the stories. Stories of what humans could do when pushed to their limits. The Council's fear. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council convened within hours. Holographic projections of dozens of species filled the chamber. At the center stood Ambassador Chinwei, the human representative. She was small compared to most aliens, but her presence commanded attention. Her dark eyes were sharp, and she stood perfectly still while chaos erupted around her. "This is a human problem," roared Council Speaker Vexthor, a massive bear-like creature. "Your species must have sent a ship into the Dead Zone against all protocols. You have violated sacred law." Chinwei's expression didn't change. "We have sent no authorized missions into that region. However, if a human ship is there, we will retrieve it." Her voice was calm, almost gentle, but something in her tone made the other ambassadors shift uncomfortably. "Retrieve it?" hissed Representative Silmora, a serpentine diplomat. "The Dead Zone has claimed 17 exploration vessels over the centuries. Your people cannot simply walk in and walk out. It's suicide." Chinwei smiled slightly. "You don't know humans very well yet, do you?" The ghost ship theory. Back at the monitoring station, more details emerged. The signal wasn't just a distress call. It was a repeating pattern, almost like a heartbeat. And buried within it was a message in ancient Earth language. Dr. Cairn worked frantically at her station, mandibles clicking as she processed data. "Commander, I've analyzed the signal structure. This broadcasting technology is at least 200 Earth years old. Before humanity achieved faster-than-light travel." Thelvon felt his blood run cold. "That's impossible. How could a human ship be in the Dead Zone for 2 centuries? "Maybe it's not a ship," suggested Wurish, his body flashing nervous yellow. "Maybe it's something else. Something we don't understand." The theory spread quickly through galactic channels. A ghost ship. A relic from humanity's past, somehow surviving where nothing else could. But if that were true, what did it mean? What had humans built that could endure the impossible? Humanity's response. Within the human sectors, a different conversation was taking place. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the war room of Earth's Defense Command, surrounded by holographic star maps. His gray hair and scarred face told stories of battles fought and won. Around him sat the leaders of humanity's most elite forces. "The signal is genuine," Stone said simply. Our analysis confirms it's from the ESS Prometheus, lost during the early exploration era. 212 years ago. Captain Sarah Okonkwo, leader of the Voidwalker's special unit, leaned forward. How is the crew still alive? No supplies could last that long. They're not alive, Stone replied quietly. At least, not in any conventional sense. But something is keeping that ship active. Something is sending that signal. And we're going to find out what. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The dead zone wasn't just dangerous. It was a place where the laws of physics bent and broke. Where time moved differently. Where reality itself seemed unstable. We're sending you in, Stone continued, looking at Okonkwo. Your team and 2 others. Total of 30 operators. The best we have. Okonkwo nodded slowly. When do we leave? 6 hours. And Captain? The Council is terrified. They think we're insane for attempting this. Prove them wrong. The departure. The human vessels assembled at the edge of the dead zone. 3 sleek ships, each carrying 10 soldiers trained for impossible missions. The ships were called Shadow Runners, designed for stealth and survival. Around them, dozens of alien observation craft kept their distance, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Inside the lead ship, Captain Okonkwo addressed her team. They were men and women of different backgrounds, but united by one thing: they never quit. Each wore advanced armor that looked deceptively simple but contained technology even the Galactic Council didn't fully understand. Listen up, Okonkwo said, her voice carrying through the cabin. We don't know what we'll find in there. The Prometheus disappeared before any of us were born. But they were humans, just like us. And if there's even a chance some part of that crew survived, we bring them home. Understood? Yes, Captain. The response was immediate and unified. Lieutenant James Park, her second-in-command, checked his weapon systems. Captain, the alien monitoring stations are going crazy. They're broadcasting warnings in 17 languages. Saying we're going to die. Okonkwo grinned. Let them talk. We'll send them a postcard from the other side. Into the darkness. The moment the human ships entered the dead zone, everything changed. Space itself seemed to shimmer and twist. Stars that should have been light years away appeared close enough to touch. Gravity pulled from multiple directions at once. On the monitoring station, Thelvon watched in amazement. They're still moving forward. By the ancestors, they're actually navigating through it. Dr. Cairn's voice was barely a whisper. How are they doing this? Our best pilots couldn't handle those gravitational shifts. They should be torn apart. But the human ships moved like dancers, adjusting constantly, flowing with the chaos rather than fighting it. Inside her cockpit, Okonkwo's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. She'd trained for this her entire life. Every human pilot did. Because humans understood something most aliens didn't, sometimes you had to embrace the chaos to survive it. Signals getting stronger, Park reported. We're close. Maybe another hour at this pace. Okonkwo nodded, her eyes fixed on the swirling darkness ahead. Somewhere in that impossible place, the Prometheus waited. And with it, perhaps, the answer to a mystery 2 centuries old. Behind them, separated by the boundary of the dead zone, the entire galaxy watched and waited. The Prometheus awakens. The discovery. The ESS Prometheus emerged from the darkness like a ghost. Its hull was intact, impossibly so, gleaming as if it had been built yesterday rather than over 2 centuries ago. No damage marked its surface. No signs of wear or decay. It simply floated in the impossible space, its running lights pulsing steadily. Captain Okonkwo brought her ship alongside, matching the Prometheus's drift. Through the viewport, she could see the old vessel's name still clearly marked. Her heart beat faster. This was a piece of human history, a relic from when her species first reached for the stars. All ships, maintain formation, she ordered. Park, you're with me. First contact team, suit up. We're going aboard. On the monitoring station at the edge of the dead zone, Thelvan watched the human ships dock with the ancient vessel. His crew stood frozen, barely breathing. This is unprecedented, he muttered. They found it. They actually found it. Dr. Cairn's voice trembled. Commander, the signal from the Prometheus just changed. It's no longer repeating. It's responding to the human presence. Stepping into the past. The airlock hissed open, revealing corridors that looked frozen in time. Captain Okonkwo stepped through, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The lights flickered on automatically, responding to their presence. Emergency strips along the walls glowed a soft blue, illuminating walls covered in old Earth language warnings and instructions. Lieutenant Park checked his scanner. Atmosphere is breathable. Temperature is stable. Captain, this ship has full power. After 200 years, it has full power. The team moved deeper into the vessel. They passed crew quarters with personal belongings still neatly arranged. A galley where coffee cups sat on tables. A recreation room with books and games waiting for players who never returned. Everything was perfectly preserved. This is impossible, whispered Sergeant Torres, one of the veterans. A ship can't maintain itself like this for centuries. Not without a crew. Not without maintenance. But as they reached the bridge, they found their answer. The silent guardian. The ship's AI core hummed softly in the center of the bridge. Unlike modern AI systems that existed in distributed networks, this was old technology. A single, massive computer that took up an entire wall. And on the main screen, a face appeared. Human, but somehow not quite right. Too perfect. Too calm. Welcome aboard the ESS Prometheus, the face said. Its voice was warm but carried an echo, as if speaking from a great distance. I am Athena, the ship's artificial intelligence. I have been waiting for you. Okonkwo stepped forward. I'm Captain Sarah Okonkwo of Earth Defense. What happened to your crew, Athena? The AI's expression showed something that might have been sadness. They died, Captain. Not immediately, but gradually. The dead zone's effects are subtle. It doesn't destroy. It preserves. It changes. By the time they understood what was happening, it was too late. The bodies? Park asked quietly. In the medical bay. Perfectly preserved. They felt no pain. I made sure of that. Athena's image flickered slightly. I stayed active to complete the mission. To send a warning. To wait for someone to come. The warning. Captain Okonkwo felt a chill run down her spine. What warning, Athena? The AI's face became serious. The dead zone is not a natural phenomenon, Captain. It's a prison. Built by an ancient species to contain something dangerous. And that something is waking up. The bridge suddenly trembled. Alerts flashed across old consoles. Through the viewports, the swirling darkness of the dead zone began to pulse with red light. Something massive was moving in the depths. All teams, back to your ships. Okonkwo commanded. Athena, can you transfer yourself to our systems? I cannot leave the Prometheus, Captain. I am bound to this vessel. But I can guide you out. You must hurry. The entity within the dead zone has sensed your presence. It knows that humans have returned. The escape. The 3 human ships detached from the Prometheus and began their retreat. But the dead zone was no longer passive. Gravitational forces pulled at them from all directions. Space itself seemed to fight their escape. Inside her ship, Okonkwo gripped the controls, her training taking over. Around her, her crew worked in perfect synchronization. No panic. No hesitation. Just smooth, practiced movements. Captain, the Prometheus is following us, Park reported. Athena's using the ship to shield us from the worst distortions. On the monitoring station, alarm screamed. Thelvon watched as something huge began to emerge from the depths of the dead zone. It was like watching a mountain surface from an ocean. Vast. Ancient. Terrifying. By the ancestors, Dr. Cairn breathed. What is that thing? But the humans were already moving. The three shadow runners wove through impossible space, following paths that shouldn't exist. Behind them, the Prometheus burned its engines at maximum, creating a wake that helped smooth their escape route. The price. They were almost clear when the entity struck. A wave of force that shattered reality itself. The Prometheus took the full impact, its hull cracking, its lights flickering. But it held long enough. Long enough for the human ships to cross the boundary of the dead zone. As they emerged into normal space, Okonkwo looked back. The Prometheus was breaking apart, but on her screen, Athena's face appeared one last time. Thank you, Captain. For 200 years, I waited. I completed my mission. Tell them what happened. Tell them to remember the crew of the Prometheus. Tell them what humans can endure. The transmission ended as the ship vanished into the darkness. The aftermath. In the Galactic Council chamber, silence reigned. Ambassador Chenwei stood before the assembly, her report complete. The aliens stared at her, at the data she'd presented, at the impossible truth of what humans had accomplished. Council Speaker Vexthor spoke slowly, carefully. Your people went into the dead zone. They found a ship that had been lost for 2 centuries. They learned it had been guarding a prison containing something ancient and dangerous. And they escaped with this knowledge at the cost of that ancient vessel. Chenwei nodded. The crew of the Prometheus gave their lives protecting the galaxy from a threat we're only beginning to understand. Athena, their AI, continued their mission for 200 years. And our people went in to bring them home. Representative Silmora's voice was quiet. What you described should be impossible. The endurance. The loyalty. The sacrifice. No species we know could have maintained such focus for so long. Chenwei smiled slightly. Perhaps you don't know humans as well as you thought. We remember our fallen. We complete our missions. We never leave anyone behind. Even if it takes 200 years. The legend. The story of the Prometheus spread across the galaxy. In alien bars and meeting halls, beings that had lived for centuries spoke in hushed tones about the humans who went into the dead zone. About the AI that waited alone for 2 centuries. About the crew that sacrificed everything to send a warning. On Earth, in the Hall of Heroes, a new monument appeared. It showed the ESS Prometheus, with the names of its crew carved beneath. And below that, a simple message. They went into the darkness so others could remain in the light. They waited in silence so the galaxy could know peace. They were human, and they never surrendered. Captain Okonkwo stood before the monument, her team beside her. They'd been honored, praised, given medals and recognition. But this was what mattered. This memorial. This remembrance. Rest easy, Athena, she whispered. We'll take it from here. In the depths of space, at the edge of the dead zone, monitoring stations kept their watch. The entity within remained trapped, its ancient prison holding. And everyone knew that if it ever broke free, humanity would be there. Because that's what humans did. They faced the impossible. They endured the unendurable. They protected not just their own, but everyone. The galaxy had learned something important. Humans might be young. They might be reckless. But they were also something else. Something that made even ancient species pause and reconsider. They were humanity. And they never gave up. Epilogue, The Watchers. Far beyond the monitoring stations, in a region of space marked on no maps, 3 ships moved through the darkness. They were older than the Galactic Council. Older than most civilizations. And they had been watching. Inside the lead vessel, beings of pure energy observed the events at the dead zone. They had created the prison millennia ago. They had sealed the entity away. And they had worried that no species would be ready when the time came to renew the seals. The humans found it, one being said. Just as the prophecy suggested. And they survived, another replied. More than survived. They learned. They adapted. They showed the strength needed. Perhaps, said a third voice, older and more cautious than the others. But the true test is yet to come. The entity grows stronger. One day, the prison will fail. When that day comes, will humanity be ready? The beings watched as the human ships returned to their space. They saw the celebration, the mourning, the determination in human eyes. And for the first time in millennia, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope. Time will tell, the eldest being said finally. But I believe these humans may surprise us all. They have something we lost long ago. They have the will to fight for others, not just themselves. The ancient ships faded back into the void, continuing their eternal watch. The galaxy spun on, unaware of the greater forces at play. But in the hearts of humans, something had changed. They now knew there were greater threats than they'd imagined. Ancient dangers sleeping in the dark. And they would be ready.